just would like to welcome you all. My name's Maureen, and I'm one of the board members of OMA, and I think all of us but one board member are here tonight. You guys just want to raise your hands, all the different OMA board members, and then there's lots of OMA volunteers if you want to raise your hands. We're always looking for people to get involved, so if it's something that you're interested in, you can let us know after the event, because we always need help. We always need people to help spread the word about OMA, help us with events and projects and programs.
There's a young lady, license plate CJF 3120 that is walking Sundays and parking in the lot across the street, and they'll see that car.
What's the? It's not you.
CJF 3120.
No, okay. A Hyundai?
Oh, no, it's a Hyundai. No.
Okay.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay. Good, yeah. Okay. So just, how many people, is this your first time coming to an OMA event? Okay, so I just want to tell you a little bit about OMA. And for anyone who's been here, every time they're like, oh my gosh, she's saying the same. But just to tell you, in case you aren't familiar with us, so we've been around for, I think, almost 5 years. And when we started, it was just this lecture series. We were doing it once a month, and now we're doing the lectures twice a month. But in addition to the lecture series now, we have a couple programs that we run as well. So we have a youth program called Art in the Garden that serves inner city youth. You can read about the details of that on our website. And then we're also working on a trauma symposium, which is going to happen next spring of 2019, and you can read about that. But those are two big programs that we have that are totally separate from the lecture series and serves a whole different community, really. So, and then, so in addition to the regular lectures, we do special events, and the big one and the biggest one that we've ever done, and are really excited about, is coming up in a month. It's on May 9th, and it will be here in the ballroom. We're hosting Marianne Williamson. So if you know her, she's an international speaker and author. Her most famous work is based on A Course in Miracles. I think her first book is called A Return to Love, where she kind of puts in lay people's terms A Course in Miracles. So she'll be here. It's her first time to Pittsburgh, so we're the first ones to host her here. We're really excited. Tickets are on sale now, and actually in 2 weeks, right now you can still get the early bird ticket price. In 2 weeks it goes up. Early bird right now is $60, and in 2 weeks it goes up to $75. And tonight we have a raffle basket for some of our books at the registration table, so it's a $1 raffle ticket. If you want to take a chance, we'll do a drawing at our May 3rd event, which is right before that event. But, so tonight we have Stephanie Charles, and Stephanie spoke for us, I think 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago. As you know from reading, and the reason you're here, is Stephanie works in the Akashic Records. So she's an intuitive, she's certified as an Akashic Records consultant, and she's been doing this for over 12 years.
I don't even know anymore, yeah.
She doesn't know, yeah. Right, probably more than that. Probably officially 12 years.
Right.
But,
Right.
yeah, like with a business card.
Right, right. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, you've been doing it since you were like 4. Yeah. You're like, didn't know what it was, but you were doing it. Yeah. So Stephanie works both locally and internationally, and she does individual readings and teaching. So she's going to tell us more about what the Akashic Records are. Some of you might know a lot, or a little, or none, but that's why we're here tonight. So on behalf of everyone at OMA, it's our pleasure to have you, Stephanie, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good. So before I say anything, if we could all just close our eyes. Just kind of take a deep breath and let it out. And take another deep breath. And while you let it out, notice if you are allowing your shoulders to slump, or if you're just kind of holding on to the full day that you had today. If you are, take another deep breath and just let it out. I'd like you to feel the seat that you're sitting on. Just kind of notice how it's holding you. You know that right now all you have is this very moment. That earlier doesn't exist anymore, that later on is not in the present at this time. And just kind of feeling your breath and just kind of letting go. Just being present in this space.
I did already.
And just feel yourself. Okay, and just take one more breath, and then you can open your eyes. Okay, so some of you know, some of you I don't know, some of you I'm familiar with. My name is Stephanie Charles, and she's right, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. Only back then I would have never called it the Akashic Records. I just knew I had something. I knew when I was going to be in an accident before the accident happened. I knew that something bad was going to happen, and then I would call my family to talk it away, which really works really well when you have a bad feeling, talk it away. And somewhere in my late 30s, I discovered a group called the Akashic Records Consultants International. And I had a session with who then became my teacher. And as life is, I had no money. I was a single mom, or I am a single mom. And I said, no, I can't go. A friend of mine I called, and I didn't have the money. 6 months later, the same lady came back up. I live out in Zillionople. And again, I got a call from my friend. I said no, and everything inside of me said, no, you have to go. And so I called. She had a cancellation right there and then, and I had my very first session in the Akashic Records by somebody else. And I don't remember a lot, except that I was very emotional, and that it changed my life forever. And it was the first time I felt loved in my life. Truly loved would be a good way to put it, you know, real love. And after that, I discovered that you could learn to access the Akashic Records, which I'll explain in a moment what they are. And so I went on this journey through this organization who has different levels, and when I started out, this really was for me. It wasn't to do it with others, it wasn't about helping others, it was about helping me get out of my mess, you know, my life trauma, my life troubles is a good way to put it, you know. So, does this go louder, Deb?
I already turned it up some.
Is it all the way up?
Can you turn yours up? I'll turn it.
Can you hear this? All right, then I'll hold it. So they have different levels, and ultimately I graduated to be able to teach others as well. And I've been doing that for a long time. It took me a while to come out, to actually want to work with people. There's that fear, am I good enough, you know, but ultimately I did. Does anybody here know what the Akashic Records are? So the way I explain it is, you want to think of the Akashic Records as your own personal library. So when I say that, think of a library that's alive, has timelines, not just books and scrolls, but like, think of film, think of movement, think of you're walking out there and you're totally into a different time era. Say this is the Middle Ages, and then you go out there, it's the Greek era, then you go into the next room and it's the present, and then you go into the next room and you discover that it's the future with computers that you can't even explain because it looks so different. So think of them actually as very much alive. You're alive, they're alive. Okay? The reason it might be called a library is because we say that the Akashic Records holds your past, your present, and what we call all possible futures. And we say all possible futures not because it's set in stone, but for every action or reaction, there's a reaction that comes back. You can stay in your chair for the rest of the day, for the rest of your life, and your body's going to degrade and the mind's going to dull. That's a reaction. So just imagine how reactive the world and our environment and our family and friends are when we speak. Because we all have, our own inner impressions. So that's why we say all possible futures. So don't think that it's set in stone. So when somebody asks me a question about, let's just say it's business and it's the future, it's based on what's going on right now, okay? We have what we call the record keepers or the caretakers of your information. That's actually who I hear, feel, and see. We refer to them as masters, teachers, loved ones, and lords. And they change over time as you are evolving, developing, changing, maturing, growing, de-evolving, they change as well. Masters, teachers, and loved ones have all been in the flesh at one time or another. They can be anybody. It could be your grandmother, it could be a master, but then a loved one may be, let's say, Buddha. So she's a master, she mastered something that she's present in your life to help teach you. They're very separate from what people refer to as angels, guides, or spirits that have crossed over. They say that their loved ones are here. These are specifically in the Akashic Records. Now, lords have been made for the Akashic Records. They're the true caretakers, is a good way to put it. They've never been in a body. Think of them as, I guess, very powerful spirit beings. When they're present, you really know that they're present. I was in a class once when, oh my God, there were like 22 people there, and we could feel how a Lord was present. It's the best way I can put it. And my impression of it was like, it was like this huge pillar just that you couldn't even see the end in sight. That's how powerful it felt. And they are the ultimate ones who decide what kind of information comes through. And so, in my case, I get to hear it, I feel it, see it. Say you ask me a question, if I hear it, I'll tell you exactly what I'm hearing, but sometimes I'll just get a visual. And so then I'll explain what I'm visually seeing. We try not to interpret. You want to think of it more as a channeling. We try not to interpret it. But I'll feel like if you get it or not, and so then I'll continue to ask questions, And that's my job. My job is to hear, feel, and see them, but my job is also to feel you. That's the intuitive part about me. So if I open your records, I'll feel what you're feeling, whether the answer clicked, whether it didn't click. I do a lot of phone work, and that's become very, very, very helpful for me. You'll also find that the Akashic Records are actually not new. You can find them in all religions and all mystical paths. In Christianity, it's referred to the Book of Life. In the Muslim faith, it's referred to as the Book of Decree. In the Kabbalah, or in Judaism, it's referred to the Archangel, sometimes it's referred to Archangel or just Angel Raziel. He is the keeper of all earthly knowledge and heavenly wisdom. It's been a long time since I said that one. I had to think about that. But it's the same thing. And what's interesting about him is he has blue wings, not white wings. He has blue wings because he's represented with blue wings. And there's a reason for that. And then in Buddhism and Hinduism is referred to Akasha, and they refer to that as the fifth element that binds and holds all other four elements together. So you could almost say it's like a recording of all the other four. Are you aware of Helen Blavatsky? She actually reintroduced it to the West. She studied around the turn of the century in India, and then she brought it back to the West. And they refer to it as the universal library. So there's different names, but it's always been present. It's the best way I can put it. It's always been present. Does that make sense? I ask that a lot to make sure that people hear, So yes, I stepped onto this journey. It's got to be 20 years now, at least. And for me, my own development, it was great insight for myself, accessing my own records. That's how you start to learn. You get to know yourself, you get to discover yourself, you get to break down your own boundaries that hold you back. You're in a space that is always supportive. If I say positive, that's not enough. It's always supportive. Whether that's a one-on-one session I do with somebody, whether it's a group session, or if I work by myself. Your best interest is the only thing that matters in that moment. But it is about, the best way I can put it is the best utilization of the Akashic Records is about your own growth. It is about your path forward. I shouldn't even say forward, upwards. When we go forward, we repeat a lot. You know, we were just talking. There's a constant repeat happening in the world, in our personal lives, nationally, neighborhood-wise, global-wise. There's a constant repeat happening. That's intentional. It's for us to break out of, to say, is there not another way? Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Could you elaborate on that point?
Which point? The everything's a repeat?
Yes.
I'll give you an example. I bet you it was 5 years ago now. I was driving on, what is that, Route 88? And that's when pictures started popping up for the veterans or the military people, you know, in honor of them. And I was driving to, I think it was Indian Summer, and out of the blue, the sensation that I got, oh, this all happened before. Pictures like this were hung up before. There's World War II. There's the Vietnam War. So I don't necessarily just mean wars. We all know that's a repeat, but also the little intricacies. So that was my first big inclination of everything is a repeat, and that's a reference to karma. Karma is a repeat. Karma is being stuck in a pattern, stuck in a way of thinking. When people say, here, my daughter's a great example. When she was small, and I live on a road that just has a small incline, when she would ride her bike, and she'd crash. And I let her do it 8, 9 times, you know. It was in my grass, she didn't get hurt. And I said, Myra, don't you think you should do this a little bit differently? You keep crashing. Don't you think you should brake a little earlier, maybe not be so speedy? And she just looked at me, she's like, huh, okay. And so she did, and she didn't crash. And that's a perfect example, even though it's such a simple one. We do it all in our lives over and over and over again, whether that's in relationships, whether that's with our parents, whether that's our attitude to ourselves. We have these impressions that are almost like chiseled into us, right? And so then we repeat, and then we wonder, why does this keep happening to me? So we have phrases out there, change your mind, change your world. When you think about it, it is about changing your mind, but it's also changing your mind and your attitude towards yourself first, so that the environment in your life changes. And that's why I say movement up. Forward is a repeat. You know, karma is tricky. Karma is very, very tricky. It's like a catch-22 almost. You break out of something, and then the next thing you know, there was a sneaky little element that you had, and you're like, oh, I'm repeating it again. Go ahead.
Is the Akashic Records a place, or is it like an energetic memory? What is it?
It's all of it. So, when we look at science, they say everything is energy. And the only reason we feel, and we have stalled, is because the movement is so slow. So you literally want to think of the Akashic Records. It's out there and it's in you.
Okay.
And it's around, it's everywhere.
That leads me to my next question. Can we access our own records ourselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is a good question, because that's one of the reasons why the Akashic Records have been reintroduced into society. We had them at one time. How should I put it? Human life, or humans, are much, much older than what we think. We have all these mythologies. We have Mu, we have Lemuria, we have Atlantis. Well, there's a kernel of truth to them, you know? And then the best part of the kernel of the truth, without, you know, elaborating on it, is that history is much older. Some of it's forgotten. We've been here before. You know, this is a planet that's billions of years old. And so at one time we all had access to the Akashic Records. And we have cycles. We go up and we go down. We go up and we go down. And so we lost them. Be that to greed, you know, going down into a more like our time right now is a very egoic state. You know, if you look at Hinduism, they call this a very dark time. It's the time of the Kali Yuga. So, and that's a reference to very egoic, very me-oriented. We're very scientific-oriented. We want to take the mystery out of everything. you know? And so that's what the dark times means. And so when you utilize something like that, that's to the benefit of, let's say, the whole population, but you're now utilizing it in a very selfish way, you get shut off. So in my own case, if I would let's say I'm in your records and you have a question about somebody else, I'll promptly ask for that person's first name just to get a feeling of who they are, to see if the way you worded your question is okay to get an answer, or if it would be a violation and going into their records. And I won't go down that road, because it will then ultimately be taken from me as well, you know? But it's in your DNA. You know, people access it in crystals, so that's a portion of the Akashic Records. You know, I have a prayer. That's how I learned it, and that has helped me streamline it better than just simply closing my eyes, touching you, and saying, let me connect with you first. I utilize a prayer with your name. And that's like the key that opens up the door to your Akashic Records. That's how I explain it. There's a first part, and then there's a silent part. And in the silent part, your name gets incorporated. And the name I refer to as, and you're going into an office building and you're looking for the right name on the door, and thus you can put the key in. And so the prayer doesn't just simply open the records, it creates this entire space around us as well. So like if there is an interruption, it always pertains to the session in one form or another. I've never been interrupted in a way where I can say, that was terrible. No, it could always be interpreted of being part of the session. She was asking, how does deja vu fit into all of this? Right, I've been there, but yeah, well, you have actually, you know. So, does everybody believe in reincarnation here?
Is there an actual, like, technical explanation for deja vu? What does that translate to? Is it like of the moment?
Yeah, well, okay. So does everybody believe in reincarnation here? Or the possibility? Okay. Or the influence of ancestrals. If you don't believe in reincarnation, do you believe that your family has an influence? You know, whether that's bloodline, the teachings that were passed down. We just have to look at alcoholic families. Those survival patterns are taught down, you know? You're influenced. So, deja vu, how should I explain this? I'm going to explain this best. You could say I tapped and accessed a memory that already has taken place. And it's the same place in the same moment that you're taking place right now. And that's because it has. There is no past and there is no future. We utilize words such as past, present, and future because we are very linear thinking. But it's not linear. Everything is happening at once. So let's say you have a past life in the Middle Ages, okay? And for some reason you are, I don't know, let's say overwhelmed by a feeling that you absolutely never had before, and for some reason there's an image that comes up with that, okay? That is, in that very moment, being conscious, just to put it in a way for you to understand in both timelines at the same time. And that's what deja vu is. You already did it while you're doing it. It's already in memory, even though you're just now doing it. And it's like, to use the word veil, it's like not present in that moment. What was that?
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, it's not present.
I've had those moments where, and I feel like I physically cannot move.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm paralyzed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you stop.
You totally stop, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Stop because it's like,
And it's familiar.
yes.
That's the other part to rely on. It's familiar. It's not a strange feeling. So it is a part of you. It's not, we like to, like I've been watching Ancient Aliens like you would not believe of late. I got myself DirecTV and it's like I'm catching up on it. And there's so much interesting in there other than the alien aspect, you know? But they touch on things like that, such as, I watched one in the Akashic Records, is a lot of information. And you'll find that, and this was actually new information to me, is that when the telephone was created, across the globe in France, somebody was creating the telephone too. And it seems to happen always in twos. You know, and so you have to look at that not as the individual, what's really going on? You know, where were these two people? What was their consciousness? Not how did it link them, but how did it link with them, and then being open to be able to get that information. There's a gentleman named Luluin in the Sufi path, and he says that there's so much technology on the astral plane that when we're finally ready, that we have access to it. So everything exists already. That's the other thing about repeat. Everything exists already. It's a matter of us opening up and not being blocked, whether that's in our personal life or global thinking. And the Akashic Records here too, to bring them back, they'll ultimately be globally available. It's just a process. It takes time.
So the ancients
Yep,
already are part of this
absolutely.
Mayan,
Absolutely.
all that.
Absolutely. It's just that because everything seems so separate, we're very linear thinking. We're very linear thinking, so we really think the past is in the past. But if anybody's ever done any kind of healing work, whether it's Reiki or Qigong, you can reach your own personal past and instantly in that moment feel the change that took place. And that's your proof. We call those golden nuggets. That's your proof that life is not linear whatsoever. And once you have a big enough of a golden nugget, I have the records open, how they put it is, then you thirst for more. Don't ignore that, because there is more. And the revealing is really about you. Who you really are. What you really are. Not limited. Oh, limitless. Absolutely, limitless.
So when you were talking about
The pillar. Oh, the Lord, the pillar. Yes.
I view myself as being
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
All repeated.
I hear things, and I listen to it.
Does that microphone work that we could, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I do hear things, and I listen to myself, and I don't ignore it. And I just had something happen, I don't know, about a month ago. Went to a group, and we were all talking. And as I walked in, I went to go sit in a seat, and I heard, "Don't sit there. Don't sit there."
Mhm.
I didn't sit there. And as it turned out, I had some medical issues going on, and as the evening went on, I found out that the person that used to sit there died. And I was kind of wigged out on my medical issues, not knowing what was going on. And when I found out, and they said, well, when John was here, we used to call it this until he died. Well, there was a reason why I was told don't sit there. And I listened to it. So is that what we...
Then we call that your higher self talking to you, yes. That's the other thing. You talk to your higher self plenty of times, but we like to give it to the angels. Yeah. But we like to give credit to angels or guides or our loved ones. We have a very hard time giving credit to ourselves. And that's the molding of what life does to us. Again, that's to break out of that. But yes, that's your higher self. Has anybody been angry and like suddenly you're standing outside of yourself and like you're seeing yourself getting angrier and angrier and you're just kind of watching it? Have you ever experienced that? Well, when you experience that, the realization here is that is who your higher self is. In that very moment, you're so in touch with that you're watching yourself like a film and you're not attached to the anger whatsoever. Because it's the ego that's attached to the anger, not your higher self. And that's something that you learn in the Akashic Records. They place you in this space. They work with you slowly. They show you how it's your ego that's stuck karmically or blocked by your thinking, your patterns, our stuckness. It's not like it's not me. I'm there too, you know? Our way of thinking over and over again, the repeat. Even though we think we might be thinking differently or we tried differently and the end result was still the same, there's also challenges in life. Are you really dedicated to wanting to break out of an old mold? And that's one of the reasons, for me, the Akashic Records were extremely therapeutic. My past comes from an alcoholic family. It comes from a set of parents that broke up the first 11 years of my life every 2 years, and they got back together every 2 years. And we didn't just break up. We moved, my mother's German, so we moved all the way across Germany. So I lost friends, language, school, you know, every 2 years. And then somewhere, I know, and then somewhere along the line, it was done. It was finally done. And she got her answer, and she discovered that he was an alcoholic. That was her drive. But that's also stuck being in a pattern. My mother was stuck in a pattern having to know an answer, you know? So when I then discovered the Akashic Records, it was to discover that I was not crazy. That's why they came into my life, that I was not nuts, you know, but surrounded by a bunch of nuts. That's exactly how they worded it. But when I left that session, I went to the school parking lot and I just bawled my eyes out because it was such a relief for me, you know, and that changed my life entirely. And so the group I had learned with, we were a bunch of women, and we got together once a month and we worked in the Akashic Records, primarily just on ourselves. And I'm going to say for the first 5 years, that's all I did before I ventured out. And I started out at the Open Mind bookstore in Sewickley when it was still open. And it took me 2 weeks to call them. And nicest people in the world, you know. But from there on, if I can call it a career, I've been doing this ever since. And then for probably 7 years of that, that's primarily all I did. Raising my daughter, I always wanted to be self-employed. It did not work out when she was small. Didn't get to be a stay-at-home mom. And here too, my way didn't work, but a greater will worked, and I was self-employed during her entire teenage years, which turned out to be with my daughter much, much more important. That's that letting go of thinking that I know best. And that's something else that you learn. The more don't think of it as digging in yourself, think of it as in you're exploring yourself. You're exploring through the Akashic Records who you are, what you are, and you won't believe it in the beginning anyway, so you have to hear it over and over and over again for a while, because we always hear the opposite, and it's really about shedding those things in such a way that you shine a little brighter even for yourself. It's a good way to put it. So I was a very angry, yes?
It's a really complex question. You're probably going to get to it, but I want you to give a simple answer.
Yeah. I'll move back, so it doesn't make that sound.
No, I said, I'm sure it's a complex question, and you're going to get to it, but I'm looking for a simple answer. So, can you just give us an example of what you might say to someone when you open their Akashic Records?
First thing I say is what you're feeling.
I'm sorry?
The first thing I say when I open somebody's Akashic Records is what they're feeling. I describe exactly what I'm feeling, and that's a representation of you. And most of the time, I get something, receive something from them that particularly lets a stranger know who's never met me before that I truly am in the records, because I would not know that they, for example, have anxiety. That's how it works for me.
Okay, so you might say to them, are you concerned about your anxiety, or is that an issue for you? I guess I'm trying to get the dialogue that happens.
How I start out is I explain the prayer part like I did here, and I ask them to cross their arms and legs while I say the prayer, meaning to be open, to be receptive, and I let them know that the first thing that happens to me is I'm going to feel you as an individual. They're going to give me what's going on inside of you that pertains to this session. And anxiety is just a good example, because a lot of people seem to have anxiety, and I'll describe to them exactly what I'm feeling, how deep it goes. I'll tell them that I can feel pressure on their temples. There's something specific that they're thinking about. Sometimes I'll get words instantly with it as well, but that's how it's developed over the years for me, is that I feel first, and then I'll ask if they can relate to it. I have people write their questions down before they come see me. I don't want to see the questions, but people don't remember what they want to ask. They don't realize that when they write their questions down, that there's a whole bunch of questions actually underneath their questions that they would like to ask. It's kind of like a painter. Throw your painting away. If you can't sell it, if you cannot get rid of it, throw it away so that your creativity continues. Questions are the same thing. You have no idea how many questions you actually have. And the other reason I ask them to write their questions down to prepare for a session is that their record keepers will get energetically involved, and they'll involve me in one form or another. So there's like a triangle of conversation already taking place. I can give a pretty intense example too. I'm not always aware of them working with me. Sometimes in the session, I discover, "Oh, that's what that little piece of information was," or that's what that feeling was the other day, and I can connect it that way. I had a lady set up a session with me a few years back, and I found myself for 3 days researching alpha males, and I have no interest in alpha males. Beta males, gamma males, stereotyping, But it's highly interesting what I read, very educational. And then when I went into the session, she brings up an individual in her life she thought of as an alpha male. So the information I got was not that I had gotten the answers off the internet for her. They helped me understand where she was coming from, and so that I could also help her word her questions differently for a better insight. So I got an education on alpha males, whether I liked it or not. So that's how that works, But here too, I open the records and I feel first. And then how it works is oftentimes you don't have to write your question down, it can be 3 or 20, it's the process that matters. But if they did, oftentimes the record keepers will say, hey, let's start with the 4th question. They never start at the top. Let's start with the 4th question on your list, and then we'll go from there. And sometimes they tell me through the whole session which number to go to, or sometimes it's just 2 questions and then they're like, let's go wherever they want to go now. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes it's the most important question that's important for that individual, or it's one of those questions that let's just get it out of the way because there's more important things than the rest of the hour or whatever has to be taken up by it. So the reason is them, but there's no rhyme or reason, as in we always start with question 4 or question 1. The only consistent thing is I feel first. Anybody else have any questions? Maybe. Where's that microphone? Okay. Has anybody here, other than those that I know, has anybody here ever had their records read to them by somebody else? What was your experience?
It was interesting. I learned primarily of the number of lives that I had taken a body, what star system my soul originated from, some of the ties. I don't know. There was another name for it identified that linked me to past lives that were dragging me down in this life, and those were cleared. And I got a sense of what it meant for who I am and what I'm going to be doing in this life, and how, like, what my vibrational attunement was, and after the clearing, what it changed to. So
I'd be curious, how did they clear?
Oh, it was I think I did 21 days of prayers twice a day, and it was this process, I guess, of clearing, forgiving, separating, and I couldn't name it, but after it was all done, I felt so free and clear, and those things are plaguing me from evolving. Just were now absent.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Energies, right? So this was an energy that, because I'm a really introspective person, probably more than I need to be sometimes, because it can just be intellectually and emotionally bog me down. So, like, I do this scan, like, what's going on, what am I feeling, and I couldn't name it. So I always trust that it's either something's happening celestially or it was a past life. So it was clear.
Well, the 21 days doing that is, yeah.
It was a dedication.
Right, it's a rewiring of the self.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily believe it. Right.
Tuning.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed highly beneficial.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. So when I work in the Akashic Records, I'm less about what star system you, because that's what the reason I'm asking is every Akashic Records reader is different, not right, not wrong. Everyone's different. And so where I come from is as you are right now in the present. And whatever is bothering you, whatever it is you're looking to move forward towards, whatever business you're looking to do, whatever it is you're looking to find out how here, getting stuck out of a pattern. So I work very much in the present. If a past life comes up, then I certainly express it, but that's not where I start. But oftentimes a past life will come up and the individual will go, they can relate to it. So I, of course, have people who come in and say, tell me a past life. And so I have a little bit of fun, and I do, and it means absolutely nothing to them other than, oh wow. And then I'll ask for a past life that matters, that's still affecting them today. And the reaction is always very, very different because they can totally relate to it. So I just prefer to come from the present because you can relate to the present. You can relate to here in my case, I could relate to my childhood and what it may have done to me. And absolutely, over time, there were definitely past lives that came up for me that let me know why that even still occurred in my life. Why was I born into an alcoholic family? I had an abandonment issue, didn't know it. If I would have heard your story and it was mine, I would have told you, you have an abandonment issue. But we're blind as to ourselves. Does she have abandonment issue?
No, but I'm sure I can.
Yeah. But that's the other thing about the Akashic Records. They do reveal who you are, in the best light. It's not about that you have a problem. You do that yourself. We judge ourselves all the time. You don't need any help in that. We're great at that. We're the judge, we're the jury, and we're the hangman. And that's not ever where they come from. So if they point out, this is your issue, this is where it stems from, this is the root, that's the other part, the root of the issue is really important, then there's no judgment whatsoever. What you then do is you say, what do I need to do? And then it goes from there. And that's the beautiful thing about the Akashic Records too, versus like a psychic reading. I'm not getting an impression. If you ask me a question, you get an answer. You can dig and you can drill and you can get more information because there is no end in sight in that sense. Your story is really, really long. As long as the beginning of time. All of ours is. Go ahead.
So there's a couple things in my life where I feel have been like it's repeat. I feel like the same things happen over and over. Why?
Because that's your karma. That's why. It's not your environment, it's yours. So what's the repeat, if I may ask? You can do it in general terms.
One is my adult children keep getting into the same negative patterns. And then one is whatever kind of relationship I seem to get into, it goes south.
Thank you. It goes back?
It goes south. There's no apparent reason. And it could be something that went on for 2 years. It could be something that went on for 2 months.
So when it goes south, where's your attitude? Which direction are you looking?
Well, I guess I'm asking myself, what am I doing?
Did you get an answer?
No. I'm a weird bird.
No. No. Self-reflection is extremely important. This is the best way you can put it, is you don't think with the head, what am I doing? You put the question out there and you let the heart answer. So I said I had an abandonment issue, and I'll explain this here in a second. I was helping my brother find a home for his cat. And that cat, I had opened its records at one time. It was a very shy cat, that's why I named it Shy. And I opened the records of the cat, because you can open, everything has a record. Everything. Including that microphone that you're holding. Everything has a record. And so I opened the records of the cat when he originally got it, and literally the question that came through is this my permanent home? And I love cats on top of it. And so my brother had answered and said, yes, it is. Well, as it turns out, and he gave a promise that was not correct, He had to move. He had gotten engaged. He had a dog. The place they were moving into was entirely too close, too small for 2 big dogs and 2 cats that he had. And so he had to find a home. And it was done, of course, not correctly. When you find a new home, particularly if it's a barn, they have to stay in a cage for quite a while to get used to their environment. But anyway, because I have a knack with cats, and this one, she liked to be down in the basement, I went down there and I was talking to her and I was chanting to her, because I do a lot of chanting. And slowly but surely, she came around, I got her, we put her in a box. Cats are really smart. He didn't have a crate. Poof, right back out of that box. And so I had to come back the next day with a crate. And this time she was upstairs in the bedroom. And so while I'm sitting there and she's underneath the bed and I'm talking to her and I'm cooing to her and I have the crate over there open and I'm doing some of my chanting, and I probably had the records open because oftentimes, in the meantime, they're always open. I no longer open close, so to speak. She came up and she laid her head on my leg. And I heard this is my smaller inner voice saying, "Wow, you're being a traitor. You're getting her trust. You're going to shove her in a box, and you're going to shove her in the car, and then you're taking her to a barn." It's not my cat, right? So I'm swallowing my pride, I'm swallowing my hurt, whatever, because I love cats too. And I get her, I put her in, and we take her in the car. Best cat I've ever had in the car, not a sound. And so we took her to the barn. They did have a cage set up. I'm sure she's not there anymore. So we put her in there, and we leave, and I'm bawling. I'm already bawling. She's like killing me. And my brother's like, I know. And so when I get home later that night, I, like in a meditative state, reach out to her, saying, it's okay, this is your new home. You're outside most of the time anyway, you'll be fed, you'll be taken care of. And I really felt like I truly was there. But then I started hurting really badly. And I was just crying. And this is what I mean. So then I said, what is this really about? And in this case, I got an instant higher self voice, because I was in the right space. And it said, well, Stephanie, it's exactly how I said it. Well, Stephanie, this is your abandonment issue. And I was pissed. First of all, I had no idea I had one. Anybody who would see my life would have been able to point it out, what a big abandonment issue I have. I had no idea. Because I didn't say, oh, everybody leaves me. I was the individual who said, I won't abandon you. I'll do everything for you. Do you know what I mean? Everything for you, including fixing your problem, which you can't do, which is just as unhealthy as the individual who says, why, does everybody leave me? And so, I don't know what you guys are like, but I have a very intimate connection with God, and I have a very strong belief that surrendering is absolutely the thing to do to overcome any block. And so I asked, what does my abandonment issue look like? After getting over being mad that this isn't about a cat, but about my own personal pain. And what I got to see was, and this is where I'll say the Akashic Records stepped in and showed me this really old woman with parchment skin. She was ancient, and she was a representation of me. And it just showed me how long I've been carrying an abandonment issue with me. And I picked her up. And when I say I have an intimate relationship with God, it's like I carried her to God and said, I can't fix her. I can't do this. And so I gave her over. And when I say instantly the burden was lifted, that doesn't even come close to what I really experienced in that moment. It minimizes what I experienced. And I won't say that I didn't cry the next time when I spoke about this, but the pain was totally different. And then there's also a habit that you then overcome your thinking. But that pain that I experienced of abandoning somebody because I was abandoned, that wasn't present anymore. You know? So in my life, like I said, I'm very intimate with God. I find that to be one of the most important things we have in our life. It's a combination of the Akashic Records and this path that I'm on. Does that make sense? you have a question? Yeah, you, or you.
I came late, so I might have missed it.
That's okay.
I'm curious as to what's the origin of the Akashic letters, and where did they come from, and how big are they? And I mean, I don't, I just don't know too much about them.
Yeah, that's fine. We had a lady who asked the same question, or where they're located. And what I explained is think of them as a library. I like to give visuals because it's easier to comprehend. Think of it as a library, and that in each room that you go into is like a different timeline. One is Greek, one is Roman, one is the Middle Ages, one is so futuristic you can't explain it, one is the present, okay?
And where is this?
Everywhere. Inside of you and around you, yeah. And how I explained that is, science is very important. To boohoo science is not a good thing because they have plenty of value. They're just catching up. That's how I always see it. They're catching up to what's already known. And science tells us that everything's energy, absolutely everything. This is just moving so slow that it feels solid. But really, you have a lot more space inside of you than you have molecules. Mm-hmm. We'll do a little practice maybe with that so you guys understand that. And so yes, it's present in you. I mean, they may say also, it's present in your DNA, but your DNA has a lot of space too. It's everywhere. And really, when you go into the records, you are going inwards.
Where did they originate from? No one seems to know that, right?
Well, actually, that depends. What's your belief?
What's my
Everything originates from one source.
I have nothing to go on in terms of a basic belief on.
Yeah, well, in this case, so I have the Akashic Records open, okay? And so in this case, the way they're answering it is that when the Earth was established, that's exactly the same time that the Akashic Records were established. And so you want to think of it also as a recording, not just simply a library, but it's continuously recording.
6 billion years, 7 billion years ago?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing they're saying here is that, so the Akashic Records that I access is our Akashic Records. Your history may be in there. If you're a believer that you were on other planets, your history may be in there, but it's the Akashic Records of our blue ball.
So how do you read them? If I wanted to actually look myself up, let's say, how would I do it?
Everybody does it different. So I took some classes. And I have a prayer that I explained that is like the key to unlocking the Akashic Records. Some people will go into like a meditative state. Some people utilize what they call Akashic Records crystals, and there's only so much information stored in there. It's not like the full Akashic Records. Some people just, same with dreams, they ask, I'd like to go in, I'd like to go in. You put the request out there over and over and over and over again. And then they may come to you in a dream, or maybe somebody comes to you and say, hey, let me show you how to access the records. But the answer comes. Just don't have an expectation of how it should come.
So there's nothing physical about this. They're not physical in any sense of the word. It's all within us, period.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you consider yourself physical, so you could say you are a...
Well, I have a physical part of me right now.
Right. So you could say, in a physical way, they're also present in every molecule.
Yeah.
But they're everywhere. The original word is Akasha. And so what I was saying also earlier is Akasha means it's the fifth element that binds all other four elements. And so it's in touch with everything. And it's also created right there, right off the beginning. For example, just to do a little bit of a correlation is what they're showing me is like in the Bible in the beginning it says there was just a void, and everything's created out of the void, and so that's where they're created from at the same time.
From the void.
From the void, where all creations come from. Yes.
I think I got got this from Buddhism, where Buddhism talks about space being the element that binds the other elements. Is there a relationship?
Ethers, yeah, they refer to it as the ethers.
So they're basically the same thing?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
What was your question?
Is it like, when you feel, in your higher self that you get an answer? Sometimes it can be very confusing whether it's really coming from your higher self, or sometimes it kind of like said, is that really my ego that is speaking? And I'm just wondering, like, what is the fine line and how would you divide?
The higher self has a lack of attachment to the emotional aspect that is going on inside of you. The ego has an attachment. The higher self does not.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Do you
Yes.
understand that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
that's a huge difference. It's huge. Yeah. That's why I use the example of anger. Have you ever stood outside of yourself? There's no attachment to that. That anger is not a part of you. It's a part of the ego, and that's why you're watching yourself. You could say in that moment it feels like an out-of-body experience. In essence, it's your consciousness who's actually looking inwards and seeing what the heck you think you're doing as you think you're being separate from everything. So it's the real you. Here, people talk, let's use the soul for a moment. People, think of the soul, the soul is inside of me. No, the soul is huge. You're inside the soul. So your consciousness, your higher self, is all around you. It's more like it's looking inside and it's, what's your first name? Dina. And it's going, Dina, do you really think that's happening? Do you really think you're really that angry? Because Dina isn't actually angry, because your higher self is your true self. That's who you are. Your higher self, you're not, here the word guru, what does the word guru mean? It means he's the student, he's the teacher, he's not complete and he's fully complete. He's a mirror of who you are. I mean, a fully enlightened true guru, not every guru. He is the representation of who you already are, you just don't know it. So it's your consciousness that's looking inwards. I know, it's a concept to think about. Yes?
So how do we access
That's what the gentleman asked there as well. So there's different ways. There's people who teach it. They have classes. There are books out there. Gosh, I forgot her name. She learned from the same place as I did. She was one of the first ones to put a book out there. What's her name? One of her books is called Healing with the Akashic Records. So she has her prayer in there. She explains exactly in there what the process is, how to go about it, what you need to do. She gives examples of what kind of questions to start with. She has a breakdown of, I'm going to say like the different realms, like where she has the angel realm, which she learned where the Akashic Records, realm is. But she had, in both of her books, I can't think of her name, it'll hit me later.
and what will they reveal?
Depends on what you want to know or what you want to ask. So that's why the examples are in there. So my suggestion is, if somebody does this on their own, first of all, you really have to know that you trust yourself to do that on your own. And I say that for a reason. And then don't ask yes and no questions. You're settling. Don't ever ask yes and no questions. Always ask an open-ended question.
What if you have a strange feeling that you're supposed to be asking these questions? You never really wanted to.
Right, that's the drive. Pushing you. Right, we always have a drive, but that's the drive. Like, can you say one question out loud? As an example?
Well, it's just why comes from mind constantly. Just things don't make sense sometimes.
They don't.
I mean,
That's right, they don't. Nothing makes sense here until you take a higher view.
and then I had this odd experience where I would gifts would appear in the form of
What was the last part?
pennies.
Okay. In forms of a penny. The pennies would show up. Yeah, I just had pennies show up too.
So it's just a weird thing, like,
No, we are constantly being talked to. We are constantly being communicated with. Whether you want to believe in it's the higher self, whether you want to believe that it's God or source, whatever words you use, whether you want to believe it's the angels or the Akashic Records are coming through in that moment, whether you want to believe it's a loved one, you are constantly being supported, and you're constantly being, yes, egged on slightly, you know, and you're constantly being communicated with. So yours is a form of pennies. I have a client, it's feathers, 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 feathers. Yes, you know, it's a communication thing. I put out, billboards are mine. You know, I go, am I really on the right path? A mile down the road, I got a big billboard that said, how much louder can God be speaking to you? The next billboard was, have a really beautiful, bold, and wonderful day. So mine come in billboards. So it's you trust in that. This is the best way we can put it. You trust in that.
But it almost feels like it's pushed in front of you.
Only because you're fighting it. That's why. What's the number one thing we do? We think we know what's best. How often has that worked out? When was the last time you took yourself to permanent happiness? We don't. That's why faith is extremely important. I don't care if you start on the path of the Akashic Records or if it's a Akashic, it doesn't matter what the modality is, as long as it takes you on a path of learning to have trust. That even if you don't understand it, there is meaning. There is purpose. We don't have a bird's view until we step onto a path, until we get hungry for it. Does it make sense?
Yes.
But?
I don't entirely trust these voices.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with, how should I put this? There's nothing wrong with questioning. There's absolutely nothing wrong with questioning, because questioning allows you to weed out what's false. Questioning allows you to weed out what is the mind that thinks it's in charge. People do believe in other spirits, or that there's entities out there that don't have your best purpose in mind. There's nothing wrong with questioning. Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know? Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a world of duality. So is every other dimension that everybody talks about. It's a world of duality too. So there's black and there's white. There's yes, there's no. You know, so you go out in space and you don't know where right or left is, but there's still a world of duality. It just looks different.
Well, and I suppose these cards are frustrating with me. I'm sure the message is being so clearly stated, and I keep misinterpreting. Okay.
Or not.
Only when I listen and do everything as instructed.
So you choose not to trust.
Just every so often I have no choice.
So you choose not to trust. Right,
I
right.
choose not to take
Right, you choose not to trust. We have choices, that's what we have. Every moment of the day you have a choice. You can turn to the light or you can turn away from the light. Every moment of the day you have that choice.
I struggle with purpose.
You have only one purpose, and that is to become one. This path, everything you're created is with a purpose, and that's to break out of. It's to break out of the individuality. It's to break out of unhappiness. Even happiness is a form of unhappiness, because it doesn't last, so you have to chase it. Like going on the roller coaster, you're going, yoo-hoo! But you get right back in the line to have that yoo-hoo feeling again. That's why the Hindus say, get me off this karmic wheel. Because even a form of happiness is a form of suffering. You lose it. So you have to ask yourself, then where is that permanent? In what form does it take place? What am I ignoring? What am I not seeing? What am I not allowing in my life? How am I holding myself back? In my case, for example, when I first was on this path, I discovered how angry I was. I had no idea. I'm sure that's connected with my abandonment, no doubt, but I was extremely angry. And I went down to Kentucky for a really big class, the same one where one of the Lords came, and there were 4 of us that drove down together. And it was, even our breaks was a continued learning lesson for me the whole weekend. And so when we drove back, I have a very heavy foot, so I like to drive fast. And so two of my friends in the back, and I'm fast, you know, I'm just driving, and I go, man, I keep seeing these tractor trailers with these rusty, like steel beams. I said, I feel like that's the old, I'm letting go of the old. And so my friend in the back says, want me to open your records? I said, okay. While I'm driving 80 miles an hour. I said, okay. And so she opens my records, and it is about letting go of my anger. And so while I do not recommend this, by the way. So while I'm driving, we removed, the best way I can put it is the rest of my, let's say, anger, like a ball of wax. And then the next thing my friend said from the records was, it cannot reattach itself from above me, below me, to the right of me, to the left of me, in front of me, behind me, or any other dimension. And in that moment, it became permanent. And in that moment, I also felt like a set of claws trying to reattach itself to me. But it was like, think of a metal plate, and it was just sliding down. And after that, I saw tractor trailers with brand new steel buildings. And so I felt like a baby. I felt brand new, is the best way I can put it, and very vulnerable. And when I got home, it hit me like a ton of bricks that, oh my God, who knows how long I've had that anger. In a way, in my childhood, it was my survival too. Like, I was self-destructive. I wasn't the type of angry that would punch people or rob places. I was just self-destructive. And so I was like, but who knows how it also saved me. I mean, I would tuck my shoulders up and I could go through life. And so I asked God, that's the first time I ever surrendered without knowing that I'm surrendering. I had no idea. And I just asked God, please embrace that anger out there. And I instantly got a heart with wings. Instantly. Knowing that it was not just, so to speak, floating out there, that it was taken care of. It was being loved. Because it is a part of you that you are letting go. Just like when a limb gets removed, there's an energy that's your imprint. There is a part of you that's being let go. And so the next day, to work, and I worked at a place that was, they had a lot of grouchy people, you know, they really cornered them, and I was really worried because I felt so baby-like, and the accounting guy came into the kitchen where I was getting my cup of coffee, and I had like little rubber duckies, and he goes, look what I found over the weekend, and it was a little rubber ducky cheerleader, and to me that was God was cheering me on. And I was okay all day, and I was okay the next day, until I integrated into this new me. So on top of it, you're supported all the time. All the time. All the time. The problem is we don't understand the outcome because we haven't been there. It's like a lack of knowledge that's missing.
I have a question. I, for about a year, have been sensing I need to understand the wisdom of the ancients. I have no idea what that means. Machu Picchu, like the ancients who lived.
Well, then ancient aliens are right for you. No. I said then ancient aliens are right for you. No. Well, you can watch them. I watch them because they're very informative in a variety of things like that. Not the alien aspect. Let me give you an answer in just 1 second. Yes.
You repeat the question because a lot of people didn't hear it.
Okay, sorry.
She has a microphone. Go ahead, ask again.
I've had this sense of needing to understand the wisdom of the ancient people.
Well, what does ancient people mean to you?
Indigenous people that lived first.
Okay, so there's two things that come up for that. So the ancients, our ancestors. Is that who you're referring to? Just want to make sure.
I have no idea. This is something that just keeps in my awareness.
Okay, so there's actually two things that come up. One is that you are looking to remove or move out of something that you're in. And the second thing that comes up is that you want to remember something. We all come from the caves. So we all have ancient knowledge in us. That's that DNA, you know? Women don't lose weight that well in the winter because caveman said, there's no way I can lose this fat, there's nothing to eat. We all come from the caves. It's not just our indigenous population, but boy, they stir something inside of us, particularly women, and sensitive people and empathetic people. I don't know who I talked about that before. They stir something in us because that's still in us. It's not gone. Simply because we think we no longer have roots to that doesn't mean we don't. Mm-hmm. But there's also something that you're looking to move out of. which that changes your way of life. You know, and go ahead and best way we can put it is go ahead and research into ancients.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, but you be silent every day.
There's a lot of that.
And listen here. Don't listen here. Listen here.
Yeah.
You know, that knowledge is there. Let it come out. You know, kind of like a butterfly is what I get to see.
Okay.
Does it make sense to you? Yeah.
Today, going back to the ancients, we have made so many advances. Every single day, the advances of one day is considered many, many years in ancient times.
Right.
We have all kinds of new tools, all kinds of new things that are good for enlightenment, as well as our well-being, as well as whatever. Why go back to the ancients? What could they know that we don't know today? Why would they know? And why, I mean, that's information that
Because
was there.
we are very destructive.
You what?
We're very destructive. Now, I'm not even talking about self-destruction. We're really good at that. But as a society, we're very destructive. We have a very limited forward thinking. And we live in a system that is a take system. We don't give back. We are a take system. And so when you look into the past, or you look even at just the indigenous populations today, they have a very good understanding. It is give and receive. And so in a big way, we have belittled that. And when you give, it comes 1,000-fold back. We're a very destructive system.
We are many, many, many more people today than we
Absolutely.
have in ancient times.
And yet we still have hungry people.
We've got all kinds of personalities going on. We've got some people that are only think of others. We have people that, of course, think of only themselves.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's all kinds, but the knowledge is still accumulating, going forward and forward.
Well, it's going faster. Because of science and technology, that is faster than what we are. And so when I look at my daughter's generation, or I can see them what the next generation is, they're going to be born already with that knowledge. So it has to, you know, people call indigo children, starseed children. In essence, they have already in their DNA what we are already learning.
It's not in the DNA, but anyway.
Well, you know what I mean, but you're taught instantly. Now, I'll use my daughter as an example.
The teaching are much faster today.
Yeah, but I'll use my daughter as an example. I wasn't big into computers when she was small, and I certainly was not big into games. And so I love computers, I love technology, it's a knack of mine, but not into the games because I wanted my daughter to be outside. I wanted her to have a childhood. So when I look at some of her friends who are really snazzy with computers, she's not. So
There are some that are.
when they're constantly exposed to it, that's correct. And so that has to go faster and faster and faster because that knowledge is being constantly passed on from small on, you know, from small on. But it doesn't mean we're a healthy society. My mother's the first one who will tell you, she's 80 years old, she goes, it's all junk. Because it's not a healthy society. But it is a time that's also natural, normal. It's part of human history. I don't view it as a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing. It's a blip in time.
Is there any reason to think that the past was less healthy than today, number one? Number two, we have much less distractions. We have much more time
We have a lot more
to spend
distractions.
on ourselves, to spend on...
No, we have a lot more distractions. The computer alone, when you think of the games, they may technologically be more advanced, but it's a distraction on the outside. It does not take you inwards.
Potential is there.
Sure, potential's always there. I'll totally agree with you.
Higher today than it was.
If that's what you believe,
I do believe that.
well, that's okay.
I mean, I can accumulate so much more knowledge.
What do you do with it?
Well, I think about it, and I try to
Incorporate.
incorporate it both in terms of knowledge and in terms of being a good person.
Right, but not everybody does.
Well,
Like you said, there's billions of different types of character. Correct, but at this time, and if we just look at the small, short history, those who are in charge, there's a big weakness going on. There's a large weakness, and so that has everything also to do, here, you want to do better, that has to do with your evolution, my personal evolution, stepping up to the plate and saying, that's not the way we want to go. As a whole, we want to go more this way, certainly. So there's an influence, and it starts, as they put, in your neighborhood first. Yeah.
Will you share your prayer with us?
Absolutely. So I don't, let me get my phone because I have it on there. I don't memorize the prayer. There's a reason we don't memorize it. If you would say it wrong, where'd I put my glasses? You can end up like in a different space. I opened my records once and I was like, ooh, that's a lot of sarcasm coming through. I don't know, I didn't ask, I shut them. You know? Think of it as just in being in a different realm. And it may not be for your highest good, okay? So my prayer is, we ask for the blessings of the Lords of the Akashic Records to guide us during this sacred time and space. God surrounds you with love and light, permeated with the essence of God's grace bestowed upon you. I grant your masters, teachers, and loved ones to channel the wisdom of untold truths and knowledge through me. You are surrounded by the universal love that flows through all living forms of life, allowing you to feel protected and cherished so that we may be open and unhindered to access the wisdom that shall flow through me. So that's my prayer. And the first part is out loud, and then the second part is silent, where your name gets incorporated. That's what makes it into the key. And this is not the prayer that I learned when I actually took those classes to specifically know that I'm accessing the records. They decided to copyright it, and I decided that I didn't want to spend thousands and thousands. I'm not boo-hooing them, I just didn't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to teach. And so for 9 months I worked really hard on myself to overcome, am I ready? Can I trust? Should I teach? Do I have a right to teach? You know, and am I capable? And so they gave me that prayer. So my prayer is directly also from the Akashic Records. Linda Howe, who asked me that question? Did she leave? See, it just hit me. Linda Howe is the lady that she worked, she learned at the same organization as I did, and she has the book, Healing with the Akashic Records, and she has her prayer in there. And her prayer has a bit of a more Christian slant because she wanted to be really accessible also to the Bible Belt, that they could relate to it, you know. Thus there's different Akashic Records, you know, consultants or readers, you know, different ways. It's not for everybody to sit with a prayer either, you know. Some people prefer to meditate and go that way. The question is do you go into it then every time? You know? And for me, also over the years, that part that's intuitive, like I feel you first, whatever else, you know, that comes to me has also sharpened over the years by working in the record. So it also brings out your, say you chose to learn it for yourself, it brings out your own dormant, or what you might feel are not sharp enough abilities. Like you said, you feel very intuitive. It sharpens them even more. You could ask, how did I get burnt that I don't want to trust? You know? We act based on what we experienced in our past. And that is also a great insight in regards to the Akashic Records. So let's do this little exercise in regards to the space inside of us. So it's really warm in here, huh? Wow. Whew. Yeah. Does it close? Okay. So go ahead, close your eyes. Some of you may be successful, some of you may not, but it's a great practice to do at home. Just take a deep breath. And I want you just to kind of scan your body and where you have a discomfort, an ache, a pain. And just kind of focus on that. And then just kind of like breathe into that space for one moment. And now I want to ask you, in that achy place in your body, to see it empty. No bone, no muscles, no cartilage, just see it empty. Whether that's darkness, a blue sky, spacious. And I want you to breathe into that. I want you to hold on to that. Just feel that emptiness. Just breathe in and breathe out. Just take a deep breath, and when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. So I'll ask first, who could see the emptiness? Who could feel it? There's no pain. That's right, there is no pain. So our limited thinking, again, we're a body, but it's a great practice to get to that silent place, but to get in touch with that part of you that I say empty. It's consciousness. It's your consciousness. You know, science is, what do they say? Like I always use the example, or the record keepers use the example. If you put your molecules underneath the Hubble telescope, your molecules are as far as apart as like our solar system is. So how can there be pain? It's kind of worth contemplating. How can there be pain? It's not touching. You never ever touch anything. Anybody watch What the Bleep? The one thing I remember that movie is, so I'm going to touch you, is that okay?
Yeah.
That I feel are these corduroy?
Velour.
Yeah, so I feel for velour pants, and they tell me, no, I'm not. That there's little electrical currents going on that are making me feel that, as well as the warmth and the softness, that we never ever touch anything. Makes you kind of think too, you know, then how, you know, why? So your space. So that's why we can say the Akashic Records are also inside of you. Because so here's the answer. We are born into this sense of a world of duality, and what's the one thing every human being strives for the moment we're born is love. So, you know, that's correct. And so I've had friends, you know, older friends who have passed away, and I'm going home. So we don't even consider this home. I'm going home into that space that's love. We're constantly striving for that. We're constantly looking for that. And that's what the distraction is in this world. Everything out there thinking that's where it is when it's on the inside. But what's really, really important to understand is that even though everything seems so crazy here at times, that it's all also built on that foundation of love. So you're not actually separated from that at all. That's what we're seeking. That's why golden nuggets of proof in life is really important. Again, no matter what path it is, whether it's the Akashic Records that take you there, whether it's the Sufis, whether it's Gurdjieff is how they're putting it, whether it's you're a psychic yourself, those are all just part of the path. It's not the end result. I always refer to the fact that I can access the records, whether I literally officially open them or not, is the side effect that I have in this life as I continue to move. It's not the end result. It's not my purpose either. Not the true purpose. It's a purpose. Does that make sense? How long do I talk?
It's 8:42.
Okay.
And we usually stop at 9. Some people have questions. You can
Okay.
close up shortly.
Okay.
Or if nobody has questions.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody else have questions?
I have a comment to that gentleman's
Mm-hmm.
comment about technology.
Yeah.
And how we have haven't furthered. And I think that we have to be touched upon some things that we don't know how to make a pyramid.
Oh, I should have never brought ancient aliens up. So, I don't know if you heard her or not. She said, the technology that we have, for example, today, doesn't even come close to, let alone the understanding of how we built the pyramids that happened in ancient times, you know? So, and it's true, there's nothing wrong with technology. I happen to love technology. I think we can do a world of good in our world. I totally agree. But we're not better than our old times, and they're not better than we are. They have a gift for the world, we have a gift for the world. You know, that would be a good way to look at it. We have not necessarily evolved out of, we've just grown. Because if you, ancient texts already not ancient aliens now, ancient texts let us know already what spirituality was present. It's still present. It's the one thing that doesn't get lost. That's the path. It doesn't get lost.
Experience that mankind has had.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, well, I look at it two different ways. This is me now talking. So there's man's knowledge, and then there's the universal knowledge. And we don't add to the universal knowledge. We open ourselves up to universal knowledge. But there's man's knowledge, and you're right, there's definitely an accumulation. The fact that we can cure certain diseases versus in the past, there were ones that we couldn't, you know? Absolutely, it's an accumulation of knowledge. And what we do with it is what matters. I totally agree. You can accumulate it and do nothing with it, and it's pointless. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't disagree, but the past isn't necessarily better than the present either, you know? And there are mysteries in the past that we don't understand, and that's where the record keepers come from and say history of man is much, much older. So we only have a portion of known history versus what our history really is. That's what makes it for fascinating stories, whether they're mystical, whether they're just myth, not true, but if they make you feel good and you gain something from it, the kernel of truth still comes through. Mm-hmm. Yes?
So how did those pyramids get built?
They're not there. Well, so just to answer so the visual that I got, the very first visual I got to your question is literally I see them lifted by air. You can call that, what's the word for that? Not yeah, whatever. That might be it, but I see the blocks lifted by air. So when I go with my first impression that I saw it, you know what I mean? So now if we were in a session, we'd be digging. What does that mean? Where does that come from? You know, is that real? Is that her perception that it was that I got to have access to? Is that, do you know what I mean? Because I can pick up something from her that she truly believes in the records, and they'll give that to me. And that's my job to say, okay, is there more that she should know? Of course.
Latest theories on the air before.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, well, I'm only going with the first image that they got, and that's just a theory, right? So is the air, it's just a theory. But they didn't do it with chisel tools.
What?
Chisel tools. Definitely not. That's like the Sphinx, it's older, you know? It's older. And some mysteries are really, really important. because they spurn our imagination. Our imagination is extremely important. It's actually what allows us to access the records, that possibility even exists. It allows you to actually every so often say, okay, I just have to do it because I don't have any other choice, and then your imagination just participates. Your imagination is being shut off of, why should I not trust? You know, what made me block that door to trust? What did I not forgive? I know, it's okay. And that's your prerogative. It's not a problem at all. Because we all have done that. And we all still do that. You know, like I said, I never saw that I had an abandonment issue. Couldn't be any blinder if I wanted to. Blind as a bat.
I am truly grateful that in spite of my blindness, I have always been protected.
Mm-hmm. See, when I was younger and not understanding what was going on in my life and why I did things and why every disaster happened, that's the one thing I used to say all the time. Thank God for that angel that kicks me in the butt all the time. You know? And we do. We have help all the time. You know, so that alone, just the thankfulness, the gratefulness that it's present, it's all that matters in the moment. Gratitude is everything too. So are there any other? Yes?
Prescribe it all to any of these theories that have people from outside of the certain aliens from any ancient history and help.
Do I subscribe to that? That's kind of funny that you asked that. I was actually thinking of that earlier. No, I don't necessarily have a belief in that. That's me now. I don't. Is that possibility? Could it be? Yeah, sure, but I don't necessarily believe in it. No.
Well, it seems very possible that since there's billions of stars out there and God knows what, how many planets, that we are not the only.
Oh, we're not the only. And I'm not about to say, I'm the first person who's going to tell you that I'm pretty sure I met an alien, and I'm the first one who's going to tell you I've seen plenty of activity in the sky from small on. So I'm not going to say that they are not present or haven't been present. I don't have no concrete proof other than what I saw. You know, didn't have iPhones back then. You couldn't take a picture. But I don't necessarily subscribe to the influence or the interactions that a lot of people believe in. I'll put it that way, you know?
It could be much, if they reach the Earth, they must be much, much more advanced than ours.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
They could have helped a lot.
They could have, like, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I don't necessarily subscribe to it as the truth. You know? So, you know? And I love all that stuff, you know? I do, and it's highly fascinating, and you learn so much just from all these different ancient places that you never even hear of. You know, that's one of the really interesting aspects, including the how did they do it, what technology did they use, you know? And one of the things, since I brought up ancient aliens, is they contribute almost everything to an outside source from some other planet. And, you know, it's a helping hand, but there's no credit to mankind. There's no, like, we were not endowed to have that kind of imagination. We were not endowed to actually be able to accomplish that without some kind of help. And this is now my own personal belief, is we're a lot older. We're a lot older. And sands of time, we've lost things, you know? So, and again, I won't say there wasn't an influence, but I don't know that to be a truth. The ultimate truth, I'll put it that way. Have you ever watched the show? Prophecies, shamans, everybody's in touch with aliens. It's on the History Channel. That's okay. You do your digging. You do your digging. You know what? I don't think you can actually. Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, it starts at 1 o'clock.
At night. Yeah, coast to coast. Is that on AM?
But if you become a member for a very small amount, then you can
Listen to it online.
do it anytime.
Yeah, I forgot about that, John. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to close up. Yep. So I'm going to ask you one more time to close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to put your awareness into your heart space. And I want you to allow for yourself to hear, feel, see, or sense whatever truth came here for you today, whatever it was, to let that settle there so that it may grow like a flower. Just take another deep breath. And I just wanted to thank you all for coming out tonight. It was fun. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for being so interactive. And I hope you guys all have a really good night.
Thank you, Stephanie. Very, very interesting. And thank you for the audience for being so participatory, as she said. I'm Judy Traster, by the way, and I'm a board member of OMA. Our next meeting is April 19th, and the speaker is Susan Ambrose on Qigong. Medical Qigong. Don't ask me. You'll have to come and find out, okay? Before we go, I just have one thing to talk a little bit about, and again, it's to thank all of you for your support over these last 4 to 5 years, which I know Maureen talked about in the beginning of how we started with lectures and we've progressed to all the great things that we have been doing right now, and with the big event of Marianne Williamson coming. And we also have ideas for growing in the next year. And in order to do that, we are planning to design a formal membership for OMA members. And we hope that this will not only give us more stability financially, because if you know, we have been in the last 4 years kind of going on a shoestring with the volunteership of 10 to 12 OMA members and the board, but we have loved doing it and we will continue to do it. But we also are looking towards hopefully bigger and better initiatives that we can provide for our audience. And we also want the ideas and options that you may have as an audience that could help us progress. So in order to do that, again, we are in the process of designing a membership, which hopefully we'll have the details for in the next few weeks and be able to present it to you. We're starting to apply for grants, but those of you who have applied for grants know that you have to be fairly organized in your organization and also have some stable financial planning in order to even apply for these. So with that in mind, again, we thank all of you for your support thus far. We will continue to provide our lectures and our other initiatives. And I think Marilyn would also like to talk to you. So again, we'll have more answers for the membership part in the next few weeks. So thank you.
Come right up. Thank you so much. Now, one of the comments said here, which I thought was really great, it was talking about both giving and receiving. So I've got an option here, an opportunity for you to give some of your time, if you'd like, on Saturday night to listen to 3 bands that are volunteering their time, which is the Noble Hops, the Bridgewater Station, and Good Brother Earl, and listen to British comedian Sally Chopping, and she's donating her time. It's all to help this coworker of mine. His name's John Sobko, and you know, like what happens in life, in our journey, he was going out one Saturday morning, off the road, hit ice, paralyzed from the neck down. Like we work on our journey. So now he's got use of his arms, a lot of that, so he's going to be driving a car to work like an adapted car. Now he's also his financial manager. He has volunteered to help OMA to be, like a resource for them, because he's used to working in business. So he's agreed to do that, and I don't think we've done any of that. But anyway, it's like I've been working with some others, just a small group, to have some fun. So if anyone wants to go and have some fun, it's like donation at the door. They've got tickets for $10, but we've got donations from the community. We've got some services. We've got things like acupuncture sessions. Bonnie Hassan has donated a session. There's a lot of things where you can have fun, and if you want to, sign up for different sessions, I'm sure they're going to go reasonable. And then donations and tickets. There's a couple tickets for Marion Williamson. So I'll give it to you, and if any of you are able to come, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'd love to see you there.
Where?
At the Comfort Inn at RIDC Park, which is right near Blawnox off of 28. And I have something, so I have the address and everything. Saturday night starting like 6 to 10. So anytime, come for a little while, come for what? Even come early if you like. But appreciate your time here, and I hope to see some of you there.